Hello, everyone. Welcome to the League One Lowdown, the final review episode of the regular season. Myself, Jamie Johnson, alongside Seb Jones. Seb, a lot to talk about as usual. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah. I can't believe it's sort of come to the end of the season already. But yeah, plenty of action in terms of the last round of fixtures, and yeah, excited to get our teeth into it as usual.
Exactly. It's usually sod's law that announcements come after we've recorded, but we've
Yeah,
been quite fortunate in a way that we've got a couple of announcements to talk about. So we're going to talk about, first of all, the two games that affected the playoff race, and then go on to the big news out of Reading yesterday off the field, and then we're going to talk about a sacking in League One. It hasn't took very long after the end of the season for our first sacking of the summer, and then we've got a selection of the other more important games of a final day where a lot was already decided. The only thing that wasn't decided was, as we say, that final playoff spot. It came down to Leyton Orient and Reading. It was winning you in for Leyton Orient, and that's what they did. So the result at Reading, which we will come on to, was irrelevant in a way because Leyton Orient did their job and got the 3 points they needed, which was a 4-1 victory away at Huddersfield Town. Before I guess we go into the game and been watching the highlights of it this morning, it's very damning, I think, really for Huddersfield in terms of performance. But first of all, Leyton Orient, fantastic for them to sneak into the playoffs in a way. With the end of the season, they had 6 wins in a row to get into sixth spot. They've done absolutely superbly.
yeah, absolutely. Credit to them, Leyton Orient. They've sort of been in and around there all season, and it just happened to be that there were also sort of other clubs that were pushing. But for me, they were. I said Reading to get that final spot, and it wasn't to be. But I think that fair play, hats off to Leyton Orient for squeezing in there on that last day, just getting it confirmed more than anything really. And to be fair, it all started pretty early on. When it is the final day and there's lots riding on it. You want to settle the nerves early, and that's exactly what they did with the early Dan Adji goal just after 2 minutes in. And I think that sort of set the standards really in terms of calmed a few nerves, as I mentioned, and just sort of settled Leyton Orient into a nice routine. And helped by some pretty atrocious Huddersfield defending, most notably in the second Leyton Orient goal, where sort of the keeper Chapman, I beg your pardon, the keeper Chapman for Huddersfield flapped. There we go. Too many
Very
vowels in
interesting.
there. Flapped sort of the ball just straight into his own goal, Chapman. So we should call him Flatman because he just flapped it. So yeah, I think that's obviously helped him. But yeah, got to have a bit of luck going your way, and that's exactly was the case with Leyton Orient. But yeah, massive credit to them. Richie Wellens probably deserves that. And in the end, there is actually quite a gap between them and Reading because of results as well, which we'll get onto. But yeah, credit to Leyton Orient for just doing what they needed to do, and yeah, no more than they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that is the lead. You don't want to bury the lead in terms of talking about the other side of things being Huddersfield, but there are really worrying signs, I think, for me, in terms of how bad they were in this game, and they need a massive reset in the summer. They just need something to re-energise that football club. I mean, you could sort of sense it in the crowd. All the noise was coming from the away end, as you'd expect. It seemed like a lower number. Obviously, I'm not sure the attendances, but it didn't seem a full John Smith Stadium. Maybe it's still called the John Smiths. And the defensive error for the first goal, transitions, they were just constantly getting caught on transitions. Odo, who scored the first one, hit the bar, very similar move. Again, and all 4 goals came from counter-attacks, quick transitions, breakaways, however you want to describe them, of Leyton Orient coming out from their defence and from their own half, charging forward 2 or 3 players and putting the ball in the back of the net. And that is a sign, really, that defence is too easy to break down, which I think we all know is one of the hardest things to fix. I mean, you'll talk about scoring goals is difficult, keeping them out is perhaps even harder, and that is the conundrum really for Huddersfield that they've got this summer to fix, because they were like it's like a knife through butter some of the Leyton Orient attacks, especially in that second half, and it was just too easy I think really in the end, and that they made themselves. Of course, they have been fantastic. Huddersfield perhaps made Leyton Orient look like world beaters.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you're right. Every time Leyton come forward, does look like we're going to score. We know the attacking qualities Leyton Orient have with Adji, who got 2 as well, and Kelman and Donnelly both grabbing an assist as well. That front three is certainly a force to be reckoned with in the league. And yeah, Huddersfield just did nothing really to prevent anything really. as you mentioned, every time they came forward, they just didn't know what to do themselves, and that's the biggest disappointment. We can say it in terms of Huddersfield losing Hellick in January was a big loss, and no one really is sort of replacing to the levels. But you can't be that reliant on one player at the heart of your defence. You're now 8 defeats in 10. And to be fair, we could go back further, and there are even more damning results, really. But it's sort of just in the last term, it's 8 defeats. Yes, the other 2 are wins, but really that sort of form is relegation form, really. It's really, really poor standards from Huddersfield for a side that were in the Premier League just a few years ago. So, yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely massive reset needed. They have the quality players in there. The likes of Taylor, which we discussed, the likes of Karoma, Pearson is not a bad option to have at the back as well. Obviously, Herbie Kane in midfield. They're losing Jonathan Hogg over summer. He's going to be leaving after quite a lengthy spell there. So an opportunity for someone else to come in and provide a bit of quality, I guess, alongside Herbie Kane as maybe midfield too. There is plenty of good options there, but we said that at the start of this season, and clearly nothing has come to fruition. So, yes, big reset needed at Huddersfield for sure.
And Leyton Orient, they join, obviously, Stockport, Wycombe and Charlton in the playoffs, who we'll all talk about later on in the episode. They've got Charlie Kelman up front, who's been absolutely fantastic all season. Top goal scorer he ends up being for the division. And, I mean, he's got to be a real key. I don't want to preempt Callum, and obviously Samu, I'm sure, is going to be absolutely insufferable on the podcast on Wednesday, Thursday. They're going to do a preview for the playoff games, the two of them. But Leyton Orient, they're in quite a good spot, aren't they? It's all about form. We always mention that in terms of momentum and hitting form at the right time. They're a hard team to back against, aren't they?
Yeah, well, we mentioned Kelman there. He's got 21 goals in the league so far this season, most likely to add a couple more as well. We mentioned Adji there, grabbing a couple, and Donnelly. What you want to be doing going into playoffs is you want your forward players to be on form, and that's exactly what they are doing. They are on form. They're really good options. Sort of wing backs are really good as well. Galbraith grabbed an assist on Saturday as well. But yeah, they are definitely one of the form sides going into this. You said sort of 6 wins on a row, and that sort of momentum really will give you a massive boost going into the playoff campaign where anything can happen. But they've definitely got that sort of on their side, if you like, and Richie Wellens is a really good manager, and I'm sure he'll prepare his players as best as possible.
Well, in the end as well, Reading falling 1 short. 3 points they were off the playoffs. A slightly worse goal difference as well that sort of made it a 4-point gap because they needed the extra point over Leyton Orient. And over recent weeks, slip-ups is draw against Northampton and defeats to Barnsley at the final day of the season 4-2, and they lost to Lincoln as well over Easter weekend. Those little blips is what has cost Reading in the end, but an absolutely fantastic campaign to get as close as they have. We've talked a lot about the off-field issues there, and we're going to do that again in a minute. But they've done very well to be near the playoff race, never mind taking it right down to the wire. But in the end, your Barnsley, Seb, were put 4 past them on the final day.
Yeah. We'll come to Barnsley in a second to celebrate a rare victory. But yeah, in terms of Reading, they just didn't quite have that final power to go for it, like Leyton Orient did. Perhaps we mentioned Leyton Orient's early start. Reading just didn't have that energy about them, and yeah, it's some sort of looking at it as an overall season in terms of what they've been through off the field, with Sellers going as well, Ben Hunt coming in. They could actually consider themselves pretty unlucky to not get in the playoffs, but yeah, I think it's just the season's caught up with them slightly. I think with sort of some of the slipping results, as you mentioned there, the Barnsley one and the Lincoln one a few weeks ago as well. But yeah, credit to them. They've got quality players on the pitch, and actually 7th. I think no one would have predicted Reading being 7th. So it's a massive achievement for Noel Hunt's side. So yeah, kudos to them, and kudos for just the players just cracking on with things, on the pitch, ignoring what's been going off, around the stadium, off the pitch, but just doing their job on the pitch. I think, yeah, the players can absolutely be commended. And yeah, they've got some gems to have Reading, and they were disappointed to finish the season with defeat like this. But actually, yeah, overall, you're right. Pretty successful season, I think, and a good campaign for Reading Football Club, and they can use it as a springboard to go forward. Now they've got, the off-field matters sorted. They can use it as a bit of a springboarder in terms of, right, okay, we finished 7th this year. Next year, let's go on better with the financial backing, with the possibility of attracting some other players in, that perhaps are better quality than what they have. They can definitely use that going forward. And yeah, kudos to them. 7th place finish, not bad at all.
Yeah, they're in a great place to build from. And you mentioned sort of one of the gems, Joe Pereira, the goalkeeper. Only Josh Keeley, of course, of Leyton Orient, has prevented more goals than him this season, and he prevented a few in this game. I mean, obviously they conceded 4 in the end, but it could have been a lot more had Pereira not made a few very good saves. And the other stat I will throw your way, sir, before I let you talk about the game, because you watched this one. Barnsley sort of dominating the chances, 12 shots, 9 on target compared to 8 and 4 for Reading, and they have the most shots on target this season across League One, an average of 5.1 per game, which I think it came as a surprise to me when I saw that stat this morning, that despite the fact that they've gone through a lot of games and not put away chances, they have been making a lot of chances throughout the season. And in this game, that it sort of all came good and they put them away.
Yeah, absolutely. That well, firstly, credit to Pereira, 5 saves across the entire game. And the biggest chance preventing Max Waters going 1-on-1 against him. So yeah, credit to that. But yeah, Barnsley successful. The office, I think really that stat doesn't surprise me as such. I think going forward, there's plenty of options. Keeler done. We have Fabio Giallo up until his injury a few weeks ago. It's just defensively that there's issues. And while I try and waffle a little bit, I'm going to try and find out a really good stat that I found on Twitter or X. But actually, I think there is that attacking output going forward for Barnsley. It's just defensively, just doing. Keeping balls out, and they're not been able to do that. It's been slightly better in the past few weeks, gone back to about 4, but yeah, over the course of the entire season, it's been really poor at the back, I think, for the Reds. But nice, I guess, to end off with a victory, and in emphatic fashion as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've just blown hot and cold a little bit for me. I guess the final word on Barnsley, why you find that stat said that they've, especially under Conor Horan of late, they've not been exactly setting the world alight, and they've had a good result here. And this is a really good result. Obviously, Reading really battling, and Harvey Nibbs missed a big chance to what would have made it 1-0. And you imagine how different the game could have been had that gone in. Rather than Barnsley hitting the front. But yeah, I think they continue to be a bit inconsistent, and this game is a real sign of what it could be next season in terms of the chances created and the chances put away being the key difference. Obviously, we'll talk more about that in sort of end of season reviews and that sort of thing. But it's positive signs to take from these sort of games. And when you get to this time of the season, mid-table sides, it's all about just seeing what it could mean for next season. And I think Barnsley could take real impetus from this game.
Yeah, and I guess a slight sigh of relief that we didn't end up finishing in the bottom half of the table, which was a possibility. If results had gone against us elsewhere, we could have dropped as low as 16th, which would have been a real concern. I have found the stat, and this is courtesy of Barnes FC stats on Twitter or X. So across the entire season, Barnsley conceded 17 first-half goals. Not bad going across 46 games. But then in the first half of matches, so 17 goals, which is the same as their promotion winning campaign in 2018-19. But in the second half of games across League One, 56 goals conceded, which is a new club record. And that's sort of it, sort of the defensive line. Yes, just reading from that, yes, it sort of held strong in that first half, but clearly it was quite a common theme of it being capitulating in the second half of games, conceding late as well. So yeah, that's going to be sort of going forward in next season. But we have, as I said, it's been slightly better these past few weeks, but still improvement to be made.
Fantastic. And on Reading then, obviously the off-the-field matters on Saturday morning, regardless of the result, not getting into the playoffs, it was still a great day for Reading Football Club, with the agreement being made. Confirmation from all parties that a sale has been agreed in principle. That was the line from the EFL. Rob Kuhig is the buyer, obviously Andy Preston, who we've had on here a couple of times. It was the worst kept secret in football, is how he described it, in terms of the identity of the interested party. Former Wycombe owner. Transaction, I beg your pardon, expected shortly. And so that sort of just puts the end. It's finally in sight now. Deadline extended to May the 8th. So perhaps that could be the day it's all finally sort of signed, sealed, delivered, and that sort of thing. So we wait and see on the final signing of the paperwork. But It's all expected to take not very long now, and it's just great news, really, for Reading, as everybody connected with the football club. Obviously, Andy has had on and spoke very passionately about just how awful it's been for fans, and you just don't have to think about having a bad owner and thinking about what could happen if your football club sort of falls off the EFL, which was a real possibility just a couple of months ago, even a month ago, that they could be struck from the EFL. And now it's finally over, and it's just a big sigh of relief for Reading, the fans, and everyone connected.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great that it's finally been resolved and sorted. And yes, it's sort of, we heard rumblings, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then there were many times that sort of things have broken down and nothing came of it. But then finally to get this, as you mentioned, sort of worst kept secret in the world, but it is out there, and things have been sort of signed and sorted. And hopefully it can all be fully resolved. And agreed on the 8th of May. But I guess just on that, we've already seen the impact. I think the stadium, the Reading, the Select Car at Legion Stadium was already much fuller at the weekend. Despite
21,000.
Despite defeat against Barnsley, it's already much fuller given these positive news. So that's a sign of things to come, I think, for Reading Football Club in terms of fans getting back on board and supporting the owner and the owner supporting the fans as well. So it's a sign of good things to come in terms of a good relationship going forward. And yes, I hate to say this, but good to see Dai Young sort of leaving the club, if that makes sense. And I think fans are happy to see that, given what has happened over the past few years.
Yeah, I know. Sort of one of the big sort of campaigning groups over it was "Sell Before We Die." It was Dai Young, and I saw a tweet yesterday. I don't know who from, but I did see a tweet that said "Sold before we died," which I thought was a nice sort of summary of the situation there. So great news for Reading, finally putting an end to the off-the-field saga. And we'll move on now to another off-the-field matter. This one coming through today of Sunday, time of recording. And we have our first sacking of the post-season. And of course, Four-Tier Fever will take the reins of our Bristol Rovers listeners next season. But Inigo Calderon has left. The statement saying he's sort of departed. The BBC read an article saying they used the word sacked, and that has definitely seemed to be how it has transpired. It comes at the very end of the season after the relegation. 6 wins in his 26 as manager after being appointed on Boxing Day. It's been an awful spell and obviously a very bad season. I guess before we go into what we think of it was good or a bad decision on that sort of things, he just always seemed the wrong appointment for me. I don't know if you agree with that, Seb, but you're bringing in a manager who's no experience in terms of first-team football. He obviously came in with a lot of pedigree from Brighton in the Premier League, and I spoke about this, I think it was last week, that he's obviously a good coach, or he wouldn't have been at Brighton and in their academy and in and around top-quality footballers and in that Premier League environment. But it just... I mean, obviously, hindsight's 2020 and all that sort of thing, but it just never seemed like a right fit. You're throwing someone into a situation that you have to stay in a division, and that is a real midway through a season, and it was always going to be difficult for him. And the wheels have sort of fallen off the bus for Bristol Rovers, and I mean, Calderon has obviously gone at the end of the season. Just what do you make to sort of his reign before we go into the right or wrongs of the decision?
Well, his reign pretty unsuccessful, I think, is probably a way of putting that. He actually came in when the club was 19th, so when they were safe, and he's ended up leaving when the club are in 22nd place. So, pretty unsuccessful in that regard. He probably appointed to keep Bristol Rovers safe, and he hasn't done just that. There was a spell where it looked pretty positive, beating in early March, beating Huddersfield and Bolton, and that actually led them to go 9 points clear of the relegation zone. But the 8 games after that, 8 defeats in 9 games following that meant that they would drop back into sort of the relegation picture and had been unable to, I guess, rescue themselves out of that. So pretty unsuccessful, I think. There were positive glimpses, don't get me wrong, but you're right, from the start, it never really was the right fit. Getting rid of Matt Taylor for me was a bit questionable at the time as well. And then to bring him in, someone that's not had a managerial experience, again, pretty questionable. And so it all sort of, not their own doing, Bristol Rovers, but I don't think they've helped themselves in terms of personnel. I think that there's probably other characters they could have brought in. I get, giving him the first opportunity as manager, but it just wasn't the right fit. I don't think, and the fact that they've got rid of him a day after relegation was confirmed probably suggests that in hindsight they thought he wasn't the right fit as well. So yeah, clearly a bit of an unsuccessful spell, I think, with the Bristol Rovers boss Calderon.
I feel like maybe it just sort of his ideas never came across fully, and to do that perhaps because obviously he plays. You assume he wants to play sort of not the Brighton per se, but that more progressive sort of style of football, and you need a pre-season for that, really, don't you, to try and implement it from where Bristol Rovers were. And I mean, I guess the other sort of elephant in the room is should he have been given that opportunity? Of course, dropping down into League Two. There is no sort of bones about how bad this spell has been for him. 6 wins, as I mentioned, in 26 games. He's taken his team from safety to being relegated. But could a pre-season have sort of sparked something? I feel like I'm sitting on the fence a little bit, but I think it could have been worth giving it a go. Obviously, it's easy for me to say I'm not a Bristol Rovers fan. I'm not there every week and seeing how bad the team are playing. You only see glimpses of it, but could he have been given a pre-season to just try and implement his ideas and see where it goes from there when there's not so much pressure in terms of that you have to win now, you need to win to get out of this relegation scrap next season. It could have been given a bit more time is how I sort of felt about it when I saw the announcement.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I just think that clearly the hierarchy Bristol Rovers want results in League Two ASAP, and perhaps bringing in a well-known manager that's been in League Two, that's managed in League Two before, that has a certain style of football is perhaps what that they might be looking at maybe. But you're right in terms of, we have seen a lot of young managers that have had their first opportunities in the EFL this season, quite a few in League One and League Two as well. So yeah, I'm a bit on the middle, really. Yeah, I can see why the Bristol Rovers have done this, but also, yeah, I absolutely agree in terms of actually League Two. They've got to win more games than they are League One. They've got more of an opportunity, high opportunity of getting out of League Two than they have of sort of dropping down from League One. So yeah, I think he could have been given a chance, but evidently, I think it's a need from the hierarchy that Bristol Rovers see themselves as a League One club, so want to see themselves back there. And maybe this is all pure guesswork, but maybe they want to bring in someone that has been there and done that and can get them out of League Two at the first time of asking, rather than, again, sort of a manager that all the experience has been getting the side relegated in the 6 months has been there.
It seems like there's a very big reset immediately. Obviously, it's the day after the game, and following the news, while we've been recording, actually, Bristol Rovers have released their retained list, and 9 players are leaving the club. Scott Sinclair is amongst them. Grant Ward, Luke McCormick, Romain Sawyers, Jerry Lawrence, Jack Hunt, Giovanni Brown, Matt Hall, and Chris Martin. Chris Martin is staying at the club to rehabilitate, I beg your pardon, from his knee injury, but he's leaving. So they're the 9 players that have been shipped off at the end of this season. New manager, 9 players leaving. It looks like it's going to be wholesale changes in the summer for, they would hope, I'm sure, a promotion push next season.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if even more followed suit out of the door. See, this is just imminently in terms of players on their release and return list. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if more followed suit, given from what looks to be quite a big refresh in the club from an outsider's point of view. I guess that might depend on until the manager comes in and his preferences and whether he's worked players before, etc. But yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised if there was more players that followed the 9 out of the door.
Yeah, well, we'll keep our eye on that. Of course, I'm sure we'll talk about them. We will talk about them in our sort of season reviews and things, and then.
But yeah. But it's worth pointing out that actually they're soon no longer going to be part of our League One Lowdown podcast.
They'll soon be down to the 4th tier. So yeah, well, thanks
exactly.
to all the Bristol Rovers listeners, and obviously Crawley, Shrewsbury, and Cambridge as well, and the 2 teams going up, and whoever joins them in the playoffs. So it's been a great season. The 4th tier podcast will have you covered. And obviously teams are coming up as well. So this is a weird change at the end of the season where obviously some teams drop out, the others coming in terms of who listens to the podcast. But we've got 3 games left to talk about. One of them does include a team that is leaving, which is Wrexham. It's the game I was at. And their visit to Lincoln City, 2-0 in the end for Wrexham. And the one story of the game just being about clinicality. And they showed why they have won promotion, because the first half, especially the first half an hour, Lincoln were miles on top, should have scored, had chances to score. And then after the break, it was a quick-fire double. Longman involved in both of them. He put the cross in, picture-perfect cross it was for Elliot Lee. They've got the most accurate crosses of the season as well in League One. And that was a perfect example of that, as that one came in and Elliot Lee nodded it home. And then Longman scored after a really nice move involving James McLean, who got quite the pantomime villain reception, as you would expect.
No surprise there, no surprise at all.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I mean, that's, I guess, the story really that I want to bring out of it, in that it's just about being clinical, and they've shown why they have been promoted, because Lincoln had all these chances, didn't score. Wrexham hadn't had I don't think they had a shot on target until they scored. They only had one shot in the first half, and it was well wide, a volley from Sam Smith. And as soon as they had one chance, it's in the back of the net. And that is the difference between teams that finish mid-table and teams that get promoted. It's about taking chances when you've got them. And they were just a different class when those chances came. 10 unbeaten, it finishes. And we've just been absolutely superb. And they've got what they deserve, really, with that clinical edge they've shown all the way through the season.
Yeah, clearly. So, I mentioned this many times. You look at their attacking options up front, and there's quality all throughout. You look at even their midfield, and even their defence as well. They deserve to go up and I guess give it a go in the Championship maybe, but they deserve to go up. The quality and the consistency that they've shown all season. Wrexham. Yes, they've clearly had quite a bit of expenditure on the team, but they've got some quality players in there, and that's exactly what you need to get out of this division. You need the quality players to step up. When you need them to do exactly that the most. So yeah, some of the players have been exceptional. The manager Phil Parkinson has been exceptional, and yeah, thoroughly deserved. And yeah, it's all about that attacking quality, and Wrexham have that in bundles really. And yeah, it only takes one chance to win a game, and Wrexham many times this season have just got that one chance, and have just got a bit of luck on their way on. But that's what a side want to do. They get a bit of luck on their side, but you don't get any luck without any hard work, and the Wrexham players work very hard. Quality throughout the pitch, as I mentioned, and yeah, goals from across the pitch as well. If the strikers having an off-field day, then Ollie Rathbone in midfield will, can deliver. Cleworth in the back line has got 7 goals this season, so he can deliver. So there's goals from all over the field, and yeah, exactly as you mentioned, sort of it's the quality of just getting on the end of crosses, and that's exactly what they've done again against Lincoln. Really, sort of finishing the season off in style, doing what they do best.
And I guess for Lincoln, really, it's all about what happens in the summer. I asked Michael Scabado after the game, how similar will this team look next season? And I mean, he kept his cards close to his chest, I think, how I would describe his answer. He said, we don't really need to add much, and sort of skip past the bit about who could leave out of the squad. And that is the real focus, really, for Lincoln now, of who is going to leave. And he's been quite open, Michael Scabado, in terms of answering questions about specifically Sean Rowan, who's been someone who has been, he's had a contract in the summer. Is the reporting that he could be moving on, and Paddy O'Connor as well, of course. He was linked with a move away in January. That didn't happen, and all these sort of players. Ben House is another one. He's got a year's extension that could be triggered, and there are players in that squad who could move on. And Ethan Overhand's, of course, another one who's constantly linked with moves to the Championship, and that's the real key now for Lincoln. Of course, we'll talk more about it as we go through the summer, but it's the key is really who they keep, and they've been out of anything. I think 10 games ago they were safely not going down, not going up, so they've just been sat with not a lot to do towards the end of the season. It was very final day feel to the game in terms of the atmosphere, and the away end was absolutely bouncing. I'll come on to that in a second.
Yeah, I guess just 2 things when it comes to Lincoln. Well, one, they'll be disappointed with how the season's finished. I guess 2 defeats in a row. It's not really how the fans would have wanted the season to end. But yes, you mentioned that they've not had anything to play for a while, but I guess give the fans something to cheer about, which I guess prior to that they had. But yeah, the last 2 defeats will be concerning. And you mentioned Sean Rohan there. I saw this again on Twitter yesterday, and I thought I can't not mention this. But he's one of only 6 outfield players in the entire EFL to play every minute of every single game this season. And so that's 4,140 minutes across the entire season. And actually, in terms of League One, there is 3 representatives. So Sean Rohan at Lincoln, Lewis Wing at Reading, and James Wilson at Bristol Rovers. So interestingly, no one there from League Two, the free Championship, free League One. But yeah, you mentioned Sean Rohan. He clearly has consistency playing every minute of every game, and also when I've seen him play as well, he's been sort of one of the bright sparks in Lincoln's side. And yeah, he's a fullback, but he can get forward. He does have that attacking output as well in terms of set pieces as well, and he'll be certainly one to watch, I think, over the summer in terms of moving. You hate for players to move clubs when they've had success and have been so consistent, but it's nothing less than he deserves. Would you say?
Yeah, he's super. He's just a superb footballer. He's one. I don't want to I'm going to keep my powder dry, but the end of season, the team of the season we'll be doing. Sam's been organised. If you want to get involved, it's on the Twitter, the X. But Sean was in mine, because he's been absolutely amazing. Left back, left centre back. You mentioned how good he is going forward. He's just a really classy footballer, and he's got his long throws as well in terms of the set piece contribution. His crossing's really accurate most of the time. And he's just an exemplary fullback. And over 100 games, he's 23-year-old and he's played over 100 games of football in the EFL, and it's just he's fantastic. And yeah, he's perhaps, you hate to say it, but too good for Lincoln. He's a top League One fullback, perhaps even a Championship fullback, and I'd push for that really, because I think he's more than good enough to make that step up into the Championship. And there's no reason at his age as well. He's got so much time. But he can make that step. I'm glad you did bring that out. He also played every minute of the FA Cup campaign as well. I think that was there was a couple of games in that. So he's been an ever present and then some for Lincoln this season. But the other thing I wanted to mention before we move on, obviously the classic fancy dress in the away ends, lots of weird and wonderful costumes. And up in the media area, I didn't get his name unfortunately, but there was a fella who was doing Wrexham commentary, who put on a shirt. There was a replica of the shirt he had when he first went to a game when he was 9 years old. And he had loads of pin badges on it, which were the pin badges he had when he was 9 years old. That was his fancy dress on the commentary, which I thought was a really nice touch. And obviously you talk a lot about where have all the fans come from and all the Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. But there are people who have been there a very long time. And there's still there is that heart to the football club that every club has. And he was there in the National League days when they were playing Lincoln years and years ago back in the National League. And yeah, he was obviously a great moment of him. Really nice chap as well. But he was sort of loving it as well in terms of all the celebrations after the game. And yeah, they did absolutely superbly throughout the season. It was really party mode in the away end. And it was party mode in the away end at Stockport as well, as they won at Wycombe Wanderers. The Congo, I don't know if you've seen that doing the rounds on social media. There was a Congo around the way end for Stockport. 3-1 win for them in the end. They went 1-0 down. Luke Leahy missed a penalty that could have made it 2-0. And then 11 second half minutes brought 3 goals and a Stockport win. And a second half collapse, really, for Wycombe. And they end the season with 3 defeats in a row. Something you mentioned last week. The 3 defeats against Stockport, Leyton Orient, and Charlton. All 3 of the other playoff teams.
Yeah, I guess just to repeat from last week, that's going to be a concern going into this one. And I guess the other concern is Wycombe dropping all the way down to 5th as well. Having been in second for so much of the season, to then sort of drop down to 3rd, but not far off 2nd, and then they're now in 5th. That's going to be a bit of a concern as well, that they're clearly, I think, the worst, the side in the playoff on the worst form. I think going into this one, you probably relish it at playing Wycombe. They've just had Josh Scowen as well come off injured in the game before that. I think it was the Leyton Orient game. He came off and he's out. He's going to have surgery, so he's out, sort of a key player in their midfield. So things just clearly aren't going the way of Wycombe Wanderers at the minute. But yeah, as I sort of mentioned last week, the past 3 defeats, not only have there been a bad end to the season in terms of 3 defeats on the road, they've all been defeats against a fellow playoff side, if you like, and because of sort of where they finish, it means that they'll play Charlton, who they as mentioned, lost to just a few weeks ago. So yeah, it's clearly much concern in terms of what's going on at Wycombe. But I guess amongst all that, they actually still have a chance of getting promoted, which sounds really bizarre to think, given sort of the season has petered out a little bit. But there is still a chance for them to still get promotion by the playoffs. So it's a bit weird, really. But yeah, that's going to be a concern for me. Again, losing to the playoff sides again, going ahead in this one, and 3 goals within a short space of time as well to sort of give up a winning position. I think that's a concern. So yeah, lots to be concerned about when it comes to Wycombe, from my point of view, anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously they finished 5th. They'll play Charlton in the playoffs. Stockport, therefore, will play Leyton Orient. It's similar to what we said about Reading in terms of that Harvey Nibbs. He scored that first goal, made it 1-0. It's a different game. I think if Luke Leahy puts his penalty away, 2-0, it's a completely different game. As it was, everything just seems to be falling against Wycombe, and a bit of a collapse with those goals in quick succession. A word for Oliver Norwood, pulling the strings really in this game. He scored the second one from the penalty spot, and a bit of a revival from him. I mean, I saw him early on in the season against Lincoln, and he didn't look up to much at all. And since then, he's sort of really impressed, and he's been not playing every minute, I don't think, but he's been playing a lot of football, and he's been playing well during that stretch. 8 unbeaten, Stockport finished the season with 7 wins and a draw in that run, and they have only lost once since the start of March. The last 2 months of the season, you only lost 1 game. That's the reason you finish third in the table, because it's just hitting form at the right time and being consistent at the right time.
Yeah, and that consistency and that hitting form has resulted in them finishing 3rd, which, I guess, yes, there's quite a few points between them and Wrexham, and at no point could they ever catch the top 2, I don't think. But I think actually full credit to them for finishing 3rd. That they just keep winning games. They just keep ticking along. They've got the momentum behind them, and they've got the players that step up in the big moments, and that's exactly what you need when you're going into a playoff campaign. The season as a whole, I mentioned this a few weeks ago, people forget that they came up from League Two last season, I guess because of, the intention that brings with Wrexham. So, the eyes have been on Wrexham, and rightly so. But I think people forget that Stockport also came up only last summer. So to have 2 sides that have come up, from League Two last year, finishing 2nd and 3rd, I think is incredible. But yeah, obviously Stockport don't get the attention, but they have just been magnificent, fantastic all season, really. 25 wins from 46 games over the course of the season. That's just phenomenal, really. Only 9 defeats as well all season. It's just incredible, really. I think, massive kudos to Dave Challoner, massive kudos for bringing the likes of Ollie Norwood to Stockport. He probably could have been a difficult sell, really. Just coming up from League Two, it could have been a difficult sell, but clearly, there's some sort of belief in the town, there's some sort of belief at the club, and yeah, they deserve to be where they have finished, and it's incredible. And they, alongside Charlton, I think, go into the playoffs with the best momentum and with the best sort of backing from the fans and just the whole spirit around the club, I think, is sensational. So yeah, massive kudos to them and finishing the season really well, as you mentioned. There'll be a couple of results that they won't be happy with. The likes of drawing to Peterborough and defeat to Wrexham will be a bit of a concern. But that as you mentioned, that's sort of one of the Roman defeats in 2 months, so they can't be too disheartened about all of that. So yeah, really pleased for Stockport, and one of the favourites for sure in terms of the playoff campaign.
And of course, the final team in the playoff hunt that we've not talked about is Charlton. They won 3-1 on the final day against Burton. Albion, they've not lost at home since January, which is again a great sign for the playoffs. They've got that home second leg now, finishing 4th ahead of Wycombe. They've only lost 2 games at home all season, and their end to the season has been impressive as well. Just the 1 defeat in 8 games, that coming though against Wrexham, which was the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of if they could remain in that race for the automatics. As it was, they finished fourth and firmly in the playoff places. Burton, they got their point they needed in midweek, so it was a real dead rubber game for them. I guess a quick word on Burton. Obviously, we didn't talk about them in midweek. Callum and Sam did on their preview show, but we spoke about them last week and previewed their game against Wigan. We expected them to get the point at the least they needed, and they got that in the end, not needing anything now going into the final day. And they've just been absolutely superb, and just what a job Gary Bowyer has done. I mean, a superb manager. We talked about it throughout this run to safety, but one hell of a job they've done at Burton.
Yeah, it's probably a good job that he has been the final day because, Charlton, well, clearly showed the quality. But yeah, credit to Burton, I think, and credit to Gary Bowyer. Just the fact that they were, I think it was 11 points adrift or 9 points adrift in January when sort of Bowyer first came in, and just. I don't know, just the attitude of the players, the attitude of Bowyer that's reflected onto the fans, onto the whole team, really, at Burton Albion. I think it's been incredible, and it's really, really great achievement for Burton Albion to stay up. That they've been sort of almost there the past few seasons, but managed to avoid it. But clearly this season they left it late and again managed to avoid it. The result on Tuesday then relegating Bristol Rovers and confirming the relegation of Crawley as well. But yeah, credit to Gary Bowyer and staying up due to a point, and obviously there's a better goal difference as well. But yeah, absolutely kudos to Burton Albion for staying up. Magnificent work from Guy Bowyer.
Exactly, and the terms of the match itself, both teams can blame or thank the goalkeepers for the first two goals at the very least. The first one was a penalty for Burton, which was a really shoddy piece of goalkeeping to give away the penalty. And the second goal, the keeper runs out and gets absolutely nowhere near the ball. He just sort of sprinted out, and the ball was past him. And Matty Godden scored. It was a brace for him in the game, 18 for the season in the league, 21 all competitions. That's across 46 games for him. He's been incredible. Obviously, doesn't get the golden boot. Charlie Coleman gets the plaudits there, but he's been a real key of this Charlton team, and he just keeps impressing. One of the lines on the commentary was Matty Godden scores a superb goal or something along those lines. How many times have we said that over his career? And I think that's just a nice summary of where Matty Godden is. He's Mr. Reliable in a way, and he's been that for Charlton this season.
Yeah, 18 goals this season for Matty Godden, and one assist in that one as well. And yeah, he absolutely is Mr. Reliable. He can absolutely sort of, he's the one that's going to get you goals in the big moments. He's been a real figure point in terms of Charlton's push as well, and just the fact of he just keeps taking on grabbing goals. It was not a risk, but I guess another one of those could have been a hard sell. Him dropping down to League One after so long with Coventry, and and him rising up the ranks with Coventry as well. But clearly, I think he'll be very happy, and Charlton will be very happy to have him as well. A very quality player that, as you said, sort of, Jamie, has been scoring goals for fun over the past few years. So yeah, really good to have it amongst Charlton's ranks, I think. And yeah, Mr. Consistent for sure in terms of his whole career, really. And yeah, he really important figure going forward for the playoff campaign. I think.
Yeah, exactly that. And you mentioned the playoff campaign. Before we go into the results elsewhere, it's worth plugging what we're going to be doing over the playoff run. Myself and Seb and Callum and Sam, we're going to be doing 20, 30 minutes straight after every playoff game. We're going to go live on YouTube, and then it will be available on podcasts pretty shortly after doing a quick hit, if you like, reviewing the game. We're going to do it for both legs and the final as well. So that is what we've got to look forward to. In terms of the other games, on Saturday, Blackpool, a 4-1 win for them against Bristol Rovers. It ends the season 1 point out of the last 30 available for the relegated Bristol Rovers as Blackpool finish 9th. Birmingham, they end the season with 111 points. EFL records getting broken everywhere you look for them. A 2-1 win on the final day against Cambridge, 1-1 draws for Bolton Wanderers and Stevenage, and Northampton Town and Wigan Athletic. Crawley, They ended the season actually just 1 point from safety, a 2-1 win against Shrewsbury. Their lesser goal difference, though, harming them to a 2-1 win against bottom side Shrewsbury, who have got a lot of rebuilding to do. And Michael Appleton will be staying around when he signed a new 2-year contract next season. Mansfield 3-0 for them against Exeter. They've scored 7 goals in the last 2 games of the season. They could have done with that, I guess, a few games earlier on.
Yeah.
And finally, Rotherham United 2-1 winners against Peterborough. Cameron Humphreys, the winner, scoring the winner in that one. And that sort of does it for the games on the final day of the season. It's been a long season, and also weirdly a really short one. It seems to have flown by as well. Thank you everybody for your company across the season. Thanks Seb as well throughout. As I say, we'll be back for our playoff live reactions and keep across our social media channels. League One Lowdown on X will be the best place to keep across our schedule there, and Callum and Sam will be back later on in the week to preview the playoffs in their entirety. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again during the playoffs.